It is 5:04 p.m. on Thursday, July 11th. I'd like to call to order our regularly scheduled meeting with notice properly given. I'm going to notate that we are going to very shortly have a quorum present. Our permanent members are Joel Schreiberg, Leo Santawasso, and myself. We have sitting as alternate members today Sonia Rothstein and Charles Russell. First, I would like to do a motion, a second, and a vote to seat Sonia Rothstein as a voting member of this board.
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And another motion, please, to seat Charles Russell as a member of this board.
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. As a reminder, our procedure this afternoon is being videotaped. Speaking into the microphones is important, so all here today can be heard and recorded. First item of business is to approve the minutes of June 6, 2019. I have amendments for those minutes. First, I noticed on page 1, and then again on page 3, I'm alternately referred to as Julia and Ms. Latham. So just for the sake of consistency, it seems that we should go with Ms. Latham since that's the format we use for all other members. Leo, you had notes?
Yes, I did. That I've already asked Beth to make recommendations and revisions, and I guess I used the same terminology I used with the planning board minutes to approve as to be corrected or amended.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to amend the minutes with the notes provided by myself and Leo?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. The minutes will be approved as amended. All right, at this time, we're going to move into public hearing number 1. Do I have a motion to recess from our regular meeting and enter into public hearing number 1?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are now moving into public hearing number 1. Public hearing number 1, sorry, let me get my paper together. This deals with the property at 65 Cherokee Road. Would all who will or may be called come forward to be sworn in for testimony? Good afternoon. Raise your right hand, please. Do you all agree to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth during your comments today?
I
do.
Thank you. Consider yourself sworn in. Looking to our board, are there any members here who must recuse themselves due to ex parte communications, conflicts of interest, financial interest in the outcome, or who have already made up their mind about this case? All right. As a reminder, the Board of Adjustment's decision must be based on competent, material, and substantial evidence that is a part of our record. I'm going to ask at this time for Alex to go ahead and read the request into the record and provide any background that may be important for the board.
Gladly, and thank you. The purpose of public hearing number 1 is to receive testimony for a variance request from section 9.2A, tables of dimensional requirements for the property at 65 Cherokee Road. The property is further identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000141110. The property is located within the R10 High Density Residential Zoning District and within the Historic Preservation Overlay District. Specifically, the applicant and owners, Michael and Maura Brown, are requesting a variance for 4 feet into the front setback and a 2-foot 6-inch variance from the one right side setback from the property line. I can attest that the property has been properly posted, adjacent owners have been notified, and at this point, I would like to enter several items into the record that was included within your guys' packet, which include the application, supplemental material provided by the applicant, as well as the staff report. I will turn it over to the folks who are here to provide the testimony to provide a little bit more background. But as you can see, the home, especially related to the front of the home, is currently non-conforming to the setback requirements. The house was built long before there was an incorporation of the Village of Pinehurst. There are some changes to the structure that took place after the original construction, and there is a desire to add some additions to the current front and the side, and some other interior renovations that the applicant has, which has sought them to seek the variance that before you guys.
Thank you, Alex. At this time, we'll turn the floor over to the applicant. If you could begin by introducing yourselves and enter your testimony. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. My name is Wayne Haddock. I'm the owner of Pinehurst Homes, Inc. Established builder here in Pinehurst for some 35 years. Interesting enough, my business was incorporated 1 minute before Pinehurst Resort. They used to own my name. So company's been here for quite a while. Mark, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm sorry?
You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Mark Dean.
You need
Oh,
one
I'm sorry.
talking there.
Hi, my name is Mark Dean. I work with Wayne and just did all the drawings, basically, and measured the site and things like that, and tried to put my vision down on what I think would get us back to the historical look that we were really after. So, thank you.
Okay. All right. I'd like to start by, I know you're doing what you're supposed to do, but I appreciate you what you're doing, okay? I have my homeowner, unfortunately, could not be here. They're on vacation this week, but they did write a letter, which I think you have a copy of, and we'll take but a little bit, but I'd
I
like to...
don't think we have that. Do we?
I think I saw, didn't Lynette in there?
Oh, this letter is to authorize, just that short letter. Okay, I thought you meant a statement. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'd
Okay.
like to read it from them, because there's some points in there that I think are valid. Dr. and Miss Michael Brown, it says, we purchased the Honeysuckle Cottage in 2015 because we fell in love with a small home in the middle of the village. We visited the library to learn more about the village of Pinehurst and our new little piece of history. We were fascinated to see our cottage.
I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you. Alex, do we have the letter that he's reading right now?
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
Beth is also pulling it, or Kelly and Beth are working on pulling up. Should be the authorization to speak, and
You're right here. It's, I think, we purchased Honeysuckle. It's right before the map, the very last page before. The big map, this map right here.
Pardon me, I apologize.
yeah, there it is.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you very much.
I apologize also, because this document that we presented, I kind of did it in order to give it to the village for Alex. My presentation doesn't necessarily, unfortunately, follow that order.
No, it's fine.
But,
I just, somehow I lost that. Go right ahead.
Okay, all right. But this is one of the most, and I was fascinated about it also. We were fascinated to see our cottage in the archives, standing as one of the first 7 dwellings in the village. Over the 124 history of our home, previous owners have made many revisions to the original layout and footprint, some of which have resulted in encroachment upon current setbacks. Point that, when this was built, certainly it wasn't a village of Pinehurst, and there wasn't any setbacks. And when 40 years or so ago, when the modifications were done by a previous owner, there still wasn't a village of Pinehurst or setbacks. We respect the current building perimeters set forth by the village, and by no means are looking to overbuild or change the character of our home. On the contrary, we want to change our cottage back to its original form, while making it a bit more practical for current everyday life. The plans we've submitted, specifically the addition of the small front porch, will allow the cottage to again match the old photos of the archives at the Givens Memorial Library. We hope the proposed alterations ensure the Honeysuckle Cottage will be a part of our family for many generations to come. Thank you so much for your consideration. We love our home in Pinehurst and can't wait to have the pleasure of calling it our permanent home. They currently preside in Myrtle Beach. And we propose to do, some extensive restoration to the home itself. Let's see here. The reason I'm here is because of the hardships that it's caused on our homeowner with the property itself. And, the whole intent of what we're looking for primarily is to change the front entry to architecturally be correct and look like it did 120-some years ago when it was actually constructed. And, without the approval of the variance from the Pinehurst, from the village of Pinehurst, they feel like they'll be missing the historical home with the size, and will miss the opportunity to be able to put the home back the way that it's supposed to be. Hardship results in conditions that are particular to the property. The current setback infringements constructed prior to incorporation of the village of Pinehurst. They were done by a previous owner. The existing owner did not do the previous construction, and it really changed the features of the house. And when you look at the home now, you can't even see the front door. It has no front door from the curb appeal from the road. Pinehurst Homes is a company that I'm extremely proud of. We specialize in restoration and historical features and values with homes in Moore County. We are the preferred historical restoration contractor by the North Carolina Historical Commission. Anyone calls and asks for someone, historical remodel, renovation, Pinehurst Homes is who the state of North Carolina does recommend. We've done many, many homes, not only in Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Carthage, but in vast other areas. But those are basically the hardships, that we were looking at. The front elevation, is currently 3.9 foot outside the existing setback. Half the existing porch, plus or minus 4 feet on the existing house, is outside of the setback. That's currently as it sits. And again, this was constructed by a previous owner. What we want to do is construct a new entry. The porch will be 26 foot by 7 foot, by 20 foot 7 inches by 4 foot. The 4 foot further towards the street is what we're seeking to have, so we can do what we need to do with the house itself. This will provide an entry foyer, and more importantly, to return the home back to historical look it was intended to be. There's currently not a visible entry of the front door to the left of the porch. It's not architecturally or historically correct. Architecturally, every house you look at should subconsciously say, this is my entry. This house has no entry that you can even see. Resurrection of historical character and architecture will allow us to recreate a front entry and reinstate the historical value of the Honeysuckle Cottage. The home is currently 1,520 square feet, which does not meet the square footage for R10 zoning, which is where we are. The R10 zoning is 1,800 square feet. If we get approval to extend the front, there's some more work we're doing inside of the setbacks. The house will meet the 1,800 square foot heated area. And a note, the impervious surface is not an issue at all. In my, and in your paperwork, you can see there's a photograph there of the existing part of the front of the house. And the one right behind it is it's kind of like a rendering that we took the historical house 100 years ago was constructed, and applied it to the front. And that's what we propose to do. With the columns and the porch, the whole thing, we want to bring it back, to the look that it was. Our site plans, there's two of them. There's a site plan that shows existing, which again, I hate to be repetitive, but just trying to be more clear than anything else. You can see where the house is currently 4 foot over the setback. That's with the structure itself. The existing steps are additional 4 feet, but steps are not, part of what we do as far as our setbacks. If you flip the page to the proposed, that's where we want to build the 4 foot addition to actually return the house back to what it used to be. I think it's extremely important that, particularly in the village of Pinehurst and the historical area, and this being one of the first 7 homes built in the village of Pinehurst, that it does return, if at all possible, back to the look architecturally that it was, 120 some years ago. That's pretty much my presentation. I just, I know you guys, a lot of what you guys do is based on facts, and I know we do have a hardship applied, with the house itself. As my homeowner said, if they, without a variance, they just, every day they'd walk into the front of their house, they would just think about what it maybe should look like and not what they're going to have. So I hope that, that has, some weight with your decision on what we can do with this little cottage. It's a beautiful little house. They're doing extensive renovation, and they are strongly set about staying in the era and keeping the home the way it should be, as far as the village of Pinehurst.
Wayne, you've submitted an application with some new information on it, and I just want to confirm that we're looking at the right drawings and the right maps. I'm looking at the survey that Mr. Sheffield did, dated May 14th, 2019. That's the latest issue of that drawing?
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah, your drawing, S1, shows the date of June 10th, 2019. Is that the latest drawing?
It's in the bottom corner on the right.
Yeah, I see it. That's right.
Okay. Because it differed from earlier submissions that was made. This is the current and true copy that we're looking at.
Yes.
All right.
Right. Yes,
A
correct.
couple of questions. Alex, just confirm that steps are not qualified as structures that have to meet setbacks.
The PDO allows for steps, eaves, and overhangs to encroach into the setback, so they would not need to be part of the variance request.
Thank you. Sheffield's drawing, the southeast corner of the bump out, where it shows steps and a path like leading to the backyard, doesn't seem to comply with the representation of where brick steps are on your drawing that's up against the existing house.
Now, the first site plan shows the existing, which shows the steps going away from the house. That's the May 14th plan. The June 10th plan shows the steps running towards the rear. Garage in the back.
No, I'm looking at what would be, looking at the drawing, the left-hand corner of the house where the bump out is,
Yeah, on the right-hand side.
shows brick step addition.
Side of the house.
Left-hand side, that's inside the setbacks, yeah.
Yeah, but that's new?
No, those, well, yeah, those, we're stepping down to a patio there, yes.
Okay. What are the dimensions of the patio?
The same exact, there's an existing wood deck there now with a handrail around it, and the patio is the same exact size as that existing deck.
I didn't mention that, actually.
No, I didn't,
And the 308 square feet is the correct area for that?
Mark calculated it, and, yeah, brick patio, yeah, 308 square feet, yes, that's the
Okay.
correct size.
What are the dimensions of the master bedroom / closet addition?
Hundred and eight square feet.
That's the area. What are the dimensions?
We didn't submit the floor plan, do you recall?
No, sir.
Not very
I don't
big.
want to guess, it's not very big. No,
Leo,
it's maybe
it-
8 feet by, you
Yeah,
know, let's see, if you look at that, you can almost estimate 77 feet. Maybe 20 feet long. I hate to just guess.
Well, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the area that you're showing for that is 106 square feet. Is that correct dimension?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's gross heated area.
The total hard surface area you have as 2,600 square feet, but I believe it does not include the existing gravel walk or the existing gravel driveway. I don't think that's important because even if adding that in, you're going to be still below the hard surface coverage.
That's correct, sir, I did not include those at all. And I believe we came up with, I think that's 17.1%, I think well under the 24% that was normally required.
It's actually 40% in the R10 zoning district.
Thank you.
So I have a question.
Hmm?
You haven't addressed the side encroachment at all.
I was wanted to do the front, and then I was going to do the side. Yes, absolutely, you're right. You know, the side encroachment, currently, there's a porch there now, and it's a side entry. And we propose to enclose an addition on the side, primarily for the use of a laundry utility room. There's a utility room now in the house, a closet. They had to use a closet in the kitchen to put a stack unit. Against a very small house, that area is desperately needed to be able to put them a kitchen in there of any size. We wanted to move the washer and dryer to that porch entry, which will be inside. So we'll have some room, you know, for the kitchen cabinetry, pantry, or whatever we need to do with that design.
We're also going to say as a mudroom, so we can maybe place that instead of walking directly to the kitchen, because it doesn't.
And again, Alex, just for the record, there's a garage storage addition shown that is inside the rear yard setback. But there's a provision in the ordinance that says accessory structures do not have to comply with the setback requirement.
Basically, if you look at both the existing survey and the surveyed site plan of the proposed additions, the dashed line and the call out for the setbacks were for principal structures, which do not apply to accessory structures, which the garage is. Even if the garage, we say, would be non-conforming to the accessory structure setbacks, the proposed addition to the garage would keep that same general footprint, therefore it would not encroach any further. So non-conforming structures that are encroaching can encroach that same amount, they just can't be intensified in any way, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So basically, the only part of this project that is being done to meet an historical standard is the front porch. Everything else is being done as a modernization.
Even though the garage itself will be extended with the same character as a garage, same siding, everything will match. Roof, shingles, it all, it will not look like it was ever changed. The side entry also will be used the same materials and items to match the existing house.
Microphone.
If they were to build this today, forget that it was built in 1895, there's more than enough land, as we're looking at this drawing, to the left of the building and the rear of the building, that you wouldn't be sitting here.
That's correct. Where the house would be in the setback, and we'd be building it
There's
to
a
look.
tremendous amount of land that this could have been built on if the PDO had been in existence, if the Village of Pinehurst had been in existence, instead of Tufts Inc. in existence in 1895. Is that my understanding?
I'm not sure. You say that again, please?
You wouldn't even be here except
Oh, no.
the PDO was written after this home was built.
No.
Trying to make sure of that. So, I mean, from my standpoint, anything here is a hardship because nobody knew when they built this home that the Village of Pinehurst, A, was going to exist, and Bill, you'd impose, we would impose, the village would impose
True.
some restrictions. Otherwise, if they had the great insight to look forward 110 years, they'd have put this back into the center of the property.
Right.
Okay.
And I also wouldn't be here if the previous owner hadn't have enclosed the front porch and taken away the historical look. I mean, that's what they're after. That's what they're back. That's the biggest change on the house, is to try to return that back to look like that.
Are there any more questions for the applicant?
They do understand that HPC approval is also required.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
do.
Okay, per the suggestion from Mr. Russell and with the blessing of Alex, we're going to try something a little different, and instead of going out of the public hearing, we're going to remain in public hearing for the discussion and the vote, since I understand that that is kosher, that can be done. So we'll give that a go, and I'll just ask the applicant, when we're deliberating, if, and Alex, you let me know if this works out, if we direct questions directly to you, you're invited to participate, but otherwise the deliberation will remain amongst the board.
Okay, that's fine.
Great, thank
No
you.
problem.
All right, board, discussion.
I have no questions.
Any conversation?
I don't have a problem with it. I think that Joel stated it quite succinctly. The problem is that the ordinance came after the home was built.
I'll say, for the sake of this conversation and going forward, that I found this to be a very inartful application. And this application is your biggest downfall, because to come to us and say that the client feels that there's something missing from their home and that's a hardship, so they should get a variance. Everybody who comes and sits before us thinks there's something missing from their home. And if that's our justification for a hardship, we're out of a job, and we should hand out variances to everybody. So I think, as Joel articulated it, that's sort of the way that, for me, is the most useful to think about it. The hardship really, the hardship is that their home needs to be returned to a useful and historically accurate state. And it results from conditions that have to do with the zoning prior to incorporation. I don't know if you have thoughts, Joel.
Yeah, my only thought is that the Village of Pinehurst created the hardship. And so we're sitting here now being asked to alleviate a hardship that that the Village of Pinehurst created. When I read this thing, as I do most of it, that goes back to before the Village of Pinehurst was created, I ask myself, why these folks are even coming before anybody? Where was the wisdom, and I don't mean to be, pontificating, where was the wisdom when we drew up the PDO to not exclude homes that were
Historical
built
structures.
100 years ago,
Right.
120 years ago, and these folks don't have to come before us? But the hardship, to me, was created by us, and now we're asking to eliminate the hardship we created. Seems like pretty much of a no-brainer to me, but
Right, right.
what do I know?
Right, no, I'm not arguing with what you're
I
saying.
understand.
I'm saying if this had been laid out to us a little more, I don't know,
I agree
within that
with, I
framework.
agree with you precisely, which is exactly why I asked the question I
Right.
asked.
Right. So those are my thoughts for you as an applicant, especially for someone who's working on historic homes, and that's what you do. Go that route, because you may not always have the same 5 people up here in front of you. So put your best argument for your client forward and help us get there.
And it truly is what we're seeking, is to return it back historically. But, I mean, if this was a new home, there are new homes in the village. I've actually torn down some old houses and built new houses. We have restored over 50 homes in the village of Pinehurst. I mean, we have done a tremendous amount of work there. I've never been to this committee with anything like this. But if it was a new house, and it was over like that, being it's like one of the first 7 homes that was ever built here, I mean, I'd be saddened if I didn't get it, to be honest with you. My heart's just so much in the village with historical homes, and I mean, it just, daggone, it just needs to be returned back the way it's supposed to be.
You did the log house across the street, didn't you? Didn't you
Did
add the
one
second
right
floor?
Did the one right beside it also with Tom Berry, which, by the way, Mr. Berry called me and I explained to him what was going on. He said he was totally in favor of it. I failed to mention that, but he did. I actually had some documentation on that, but he and his wife, I discussed it with him, and he was glad that I was doing the work. He was saying he knew it would be like it's supposed to be, because we restored his house also.
Turning back to the conversation on the board, the one thing that does give me pause is this mudroom laundry addition. There's, as noted, a lot of room throughout the house. We don't have a floor plan, so I'm not able architecturally to look at this and say, oh yes, that's really the only place that a laundry room can go. That has nothing to do with the historical quality of the house.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm also looking at it as a former, long time ago, resident of Pinehurst, and I appreciate the gentleman trying to restore the house to what it looks like, because if you've been by, it does kind of look out of place. It just doesn't look like old Pinehurst. So that's my opinion. I think we should agree to let them restore it.
Well, I'm not talking about that front porch. I'm talking about that mudroom, laundry room addition, and wondering why that needs to be there such that it's encroaching. And without a floor plan of the house, it's hard to understand what that is all about. I don't know if anyone on the board has any discussion about that.
Again, they wouldn't be here if we hadn't made regulations that caused this hardship. So, to me, the very fact that we created the hardship is a hardship. I mean, that's just the way I see it, that if, as Wayne says, if he'd built this house today or 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, when we had PDO and they did this and then they were coming back, I'd agree with you. But I find it hard to to state that the hardship wasn't created by the Village of Pinehurst creating a PDO. Therefore, it's a hardship.
Well, that logic would be consistent for every home that existed here before incorporation.
That's what I just said, though. I question why every home that existed in the Village of Pinehurst before we wrote the PDO was not simply grandfathered, and why those homes have the same restrictions when nobody knew what the restrictions were going to be because we didn't have a crystal ball. Then we came along and said, oh, well, I know where your home is built, but you can't have that 1 foot because we made a law that says you've got to have a 15-foot setback. Well, why didn't we make the law that said it was a 14-foot setback or a 10-foot setback?
Well, there are laws for a reason.
I'm just
I mean,
giving
there
you-
were a lot of homes here before Pinehurst was incorporated. and
No,
if-
no, there were not a lot of homes here.
What year was the PDO written?
Well, I can say that the village was incorporated in 1980. So we have to think that some sort of development ordinance was probably adopted sometime following that.
I mean, 1980, that's,
96 is when the
oh,
village,
I'm sorry. We didn't direct a question. Thank you.
I believe that this was Tufts property without anything to restrict it except
Oh, I agree.
in
I-
1970.
Yeah.
I don't know when Diamond had bought this place, but I thought it was 1970. And I thought Dedman bought it in 1980. So in 1970, when the Village of Pinehurst became something other than Tufts Playground, there were no laws. It was whatever Tufts wanted you to do.
I understand.
So there were not a lot of homes here.
I think that just in terms of legality, if we're going to accept the logic that the ordinance created the hardship in the front of the house, we have to accept that it created a hardship on the side of the house.
Could I make
No, I
a-
think
it's a
they have
little
a
hard to say that
justification
it-
for the variance in the description of the variance request included in the application, that the purpose of the addition on the side of the house is to provide a utility room which is urgently needed. The existing washer and dryer is a stacked unit in the kitchen pantry closet.
Oh, I agree. That's an untenable situation. But, I've certainly looked at many homes where a washer dryer is off one of the bedrooms, such as my home. So, that I.
You want to apply for a variance?
No, I'm good with it. But, my question, if this is about restoring a historical building to the way it was, that's the one thing that is kind of sticking in my craw.
Could I make a motion?
Yep, go right ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the variance request from Section 9.2A, located within R10 zoning district and the overlay district, specifically the applicant known as Michael and Mariah Brown are requesting the front setback and side setback. And I'll just read that I think this meets all of the requirements that the Board of Adjustment has to meet. I believe the unnecessary hardship would result from the strict adherence of the ordinance. I believe that the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography, and hardships resulting from personal circumstance, I understand, are not relevant here. The hardship did not result, from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner, and the requested variance is consistent, certainly, with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured, a substantial justice is achieved, and the house gets back to looking like it was supposed to look like.
I'll second that.
Before we do that, I'd like to discuss the actions available to the Board of Adjustment.
I was going to say it's a little early to make that motion without any findings of fact.
Sorry, she called on me. I made a motion. The motion is on the floor. The next thing you do is you ask for a second on the motion. I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
I did, I already did.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
I think one thing that the board can do is, Joel, you've made your motion. We followed through basically your reading of it. If you could, in your words, again, and with each one of those hardships, what is your finding of fact? How did you come to that conclusion? How did you came to the conclusion that unnecessary hardship would result from strict application of the ordinance because the applicant or the evidence is ... If that would help the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think after you make the motion, you can certainly have a discussion, but I mean, I'll expand on it. I've just said it. I think the entire application is a result of the Village of Pinehurst being incorporated, developing a Pinehurst Development Ordinance, which put in setbacks which are detrimental to this property variance. And so I don't see how any of this is not a hardship, because the guy bought the house long after, the house was built long before there were restrictions on setbacks. So, I mean, if it were me when this had come up 40 years ago or 50 years ago, whenever we developed a Pinehurst Development Ordinance, I personally would have sat here and said I'd like to exclude from the strict adherence of our setbacks those properties that were built with the caveat that if anybody, as I've always said, sitting here for years and years, I don't see an audience full of people going, no, I don't like this. So if people on either side objected to this, as you know, I'd have a totally different opinion. But here's somebody who wants to restore a house with rules and regulations that were created after the house was built. Clearly, there's enough property here for this to have built on, and we wouldn't be here. So that's just my point.
But that's not the reality of the situation, and what you're advocating can only be done by the village council. We don't have the authority to make any changes to laws or ordinances.
I'm not trying to make a change to a law. I'm simply stating that, in my opinion, that's the hardship.
Based on the evidence and submitted and what has been provided in the public hearing.
Yes. Based on the evidence that's been presented at a public hearing.
As part of the discussion, I'd like to remind our board, that we have the ability to, at this time, either grant the requested variance based on Joel's motion, deny, grant the requested variance with appropriate conditions which are not included in Joel's motion. And to keep in mind that granting the requested variance requires a concurring vote of at least 4 of our 5 board members. Is there any other discussion on Joel's motion before we vote?
Can I ask the applicant's representative a question at this point?
We're still in...
You're still in.
We're still in public hearing, so go ahead, Leo.
You mentioned that an adjoining property owner had some concern or question?
They contacted me. They also contacted the village. And we found out Pinehurst Homes was doing it, which we did restore their house. It's the house directly to the right of 65. The homeowner's Tom Berry. And I sent him some documentation, but we discussed, what I was doing. He said he was very pleased with what we were doing and was in favor of it. The encroachment of the porch is on his side. But I don't know that makes much difference, but...
All right, looking at the Sheffield survey, this individual's house is to the right of the subject property?
The house actually shown on Sheffield's survey is the house. And really, the only reason that Sheffield showed that is because when I restored that house, he had the survey.
That's on lot 604?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, right. And he showed it because he had it.
I don't know if you can consider that as hearsay or what.
I would,
Exactly.
without them
It's
here.
not the owner being
So
here.
that's not material evidence at this point. Any more discussion before we go ahead and vote?
Yes. Is it necessary that we condition this approval on HPC approval or an application to HPC?
Now, as you stated earlier, if a variance would be granted to encroach, then any exterior modifications would have to be reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission and/or staff.
That's before you'd issue them a building permit.
That's correct.
Okay, let's go ahead and do a voice vote. Joel?
Vote to approve.
Charles?
Recommend we deny.
Leah?
Approve?
Approve.
Sonia? I'm going to recommend that we deny. However, can we also, at this time, can we have another motion before the board? We can.
Let me offer a suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
Why don't you suggest to me what you want me to change?
I wouldn't recommend that. If you can open the floor for another motion.
I can open the floor for another motion. I need to think for a moment to figure out how I get there. It's 2 feet, 6 inches encroachment on the right side of the house with that mudroom. Is that correct?
Mudroom is an issue. Leave it like it is and drop that request for the variance on that right-hand side.
9 feet.
Well,
Right, stay inside of the setbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, it's the mudroom that's giving me heartburn. Because I see the hardship differently than you do, Joel. I'm not entirely comfortable with the idea that everything that occurred prior to the PDO is hardship and therefore, in my mind, appropriate for a variance. I can't go that far with you. However, I do believe that there is hardship in owning a historical home that you cannot bring back to its, its former glory, especially when you're talking about one of the first 7 homes here in Pinehurst. I see hardship in that, absolutely. And that hardship was not caused by the property owners in any way, shape, or form. A combination of the work that had previously been done on this home and also the way that the building is sited on this lot. There's nothing you can do. You can't pick it up and move it. So it is that laundry room that I can't get around using the reasoning, using the logic that I'm coming at this.
So let me suggest to you that if we talk about restoring these homes to their original construction,
Well, not to their original construction. For the facade I'm talking about. I don't expect anyone to go back and put a pump in their kitchen or...
so from my perspective, they want to expand this. They want to encroach on the setback by a foot, so that instead of having a stacked washer dryer, they can have a real washer dryer. But if I think about this from your standpoint, they can't have a washer and dryer at all, because when this place was built, they did their laundry in a washboard.
No, you didn't hear what I said, Joel.
I did hear what you said.
I'm saying the facade of the building. I did not say the floor plan, and I said I'm not expecting anyone to go back to using a pump kitchen. So what I am looking at, though, is I'm seeing a home with a lot of extra room where perhaps another washer or dryer could go elsewhere. And I haven't had the applicant satisfy for me why that can't happen. And perhaps it could have happened, but based on the material evidence I have in front of me, I don't have enough information. I can't get there.
Okay.
and I understand that, but I do believe that the problem we have is down the road, if the applicant wants to take us 30 days and go to court, we'll be faulted for the logic. And to me, the logic is that if we're going to accept the setback in the front, we have to accept the setback on the side.
So what I would like to propose as a motion is, hold on. I move that the variance be granted with the condition that this side laundry room be amended in some way, that it adhere to the existing setback at the right side of the house. That the unnecessary hardship results from the strict application of the ordinance in as much as the development of the front of the house, that hardship is that a historic home is not being able to be enjoyed in its historic capacity, one of the 7 original homes of Pinehurst, that this hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as the way the house has previously been sited on this property, that this hardship is not from any action taken by the applicant, the current property owner, and that the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, in that we are honoring the PDO and the setbacks that have been proposed for the village, but at the same time, keeping with the historical district and the nature of this part of our village. Alex, is that satisfactory?
Yes, it'll just take me a little while to capture some of that. So we may not have the decision letter, if this motion were to carry, ready for signature this evening.
Yeah.
I may have to go back and it may take a day or so.
I apologize.
It's all right. I wasn't able to keep up as quickly with your motion.
Well, it was a bit of a rambling motion, so I apologize. Do you want me to try it again and get it tighter?
Well, what you're saying, if I can.
Go ahead, Leo.
Is that you're inclined to approve the front addition encroachment, and that's all.
Yes. So I'm approving I move that we approve the application for the variance with the condition that the side mudroom development adhere to the existing setback.
I'll second it.
Okay, by voice vote, Joel? Charles?
Recommend approval.
Leo?
Approve?
Sonia? I approve. So the variance is approved with the condition that the side development must adhere to the current setback. Thank you. All right, for public hearing number 2. Oh, yeah, we absolutely can take a break. 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 6:05. That's actually a 8-minute recess. Since we're all back, we'll go ahead and reconvene a little earlier. We're looking at public hearing number 2. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony from the variance request related to 5 York Place. Are the applicants present? Okay, let's get you sworn in, please. Can you, you're probably already sworn in, Wayne. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Consider yourself sworn in. Please come forward, introduce yourselves. Oh, actually, I'm going to pause and ask at this time Alex to go ahead and, well, I'm going to ask if there's any member who must recuse themselves due to ex parte communications, conflict of interest, financial interest in the outcome, or who have already made up their mind in regard to this application. Okay, as a reminder, our decision must be based on competent material and substantial evidence, and I'm going to ask Alex to please read the request into the record and provide us a backstory about this application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of public hearing number 2 is to receive testimony for a variance request from Section 9.2A, Tables of Dimensional Requirements for the property at 5 York Place. The property is further identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000170008. The property is located within the R10 High Density Residential Zoning District. Specifically, the applicant and owners, Don and Betty Zylstra, are requesting a 5-foot variance on the 25-foot rear yard setback from the property line. I can attest that the property has been properly posted and adjacent owners have been notified. And at this time, I would like to enter certain materials into the record. One would be the application that was received and updated July 8th, 2019. You guys should have that revised set either when you picked up your packet or notified to come and pick it up afterward. It will have a signature by Amber Michael dated June 28th, 19 at the bottom, just so we're referencing the same application. Also is a letter of authorization to Pinehurst Homes, Inc. to speak and provide evidence on their behalf. Also, I would like to enter the staff report into the record. And a little background on the property is that this is a lot that's part of a subdivision by Pinehurst, Inc. in 1973, which is indicated on a map recorded within the Moore County Register of Deeds, map book 10, page 41, and that should be included within the online packet material as well, and it shows the entirety of the subdivision in the area. This lot is currently vacant. It is one of 2 homes on the York Place cul-de-sac that is currently vacant. The rest of them are currently built. Also provided by the applicant are several surveyed site plans of the various building footprints that they have reached out, and I'll let Mr. Haddock speak more to that, by designers that would basically be impacted at the appropriate size that he feels on that dimensioned lot. And finally is a surveyed site plan with the desired 20-foot rear setback proposal and a home placed on that to meet those setback requirements. And there is also a map that was generated by the applicant with data from Moore County GIS with approximate dimensions and locations of building footprints from various property lines.
Thank you. This time I'll turn it over to the applicants and let you present your application to us. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce the owner of the lot. He also lives in the house directly beside the property, Mr. Don Zylstra. Don, you want to say anything?
Well, I'm starting to be a long-time owner in Pinehurst. Started in Pinewild. It's 30 years ago we bought the property in Pinewild, and we ended up in a home that's half the size that we're in now, and pay taxes on that lot next to us for about 18 years. And I just decided that it must be time to consider building it and either moving into it myself or selling it once it's finished. And I certainly appreciate what you folks are doing, because I do it for the village myself. I'm one of your village citizens patrol. And I've been that now for over 8 years. And that's about all I can say about myself.
Thank you.
Okay. First thing I'd like to address is I'd like to make a point. This is a new home and a newer development, much more so than the first issue we were looking at. It has some of the same issues, though. This property was recorded by Pinehurst Enterprises, Diamond Head, back in the 70s. And the village of Pinehurst, when they passed their PDO, changed the setback requirements, which I have it in here, but it did not affect a lot of the property, most of the lots in Pinehurst. It affected lots in the Gun Club and in Unit 8 and Unit 8A. This particular lot is in Unit 8A. And the hardship is that, I've had 3 different architectural designers with a total of 70, 80 years of experience to please research their files and try to find me a home that we could build on this lot. This was prior to me even believing that I couldn't find a house that I could build on this piece of property that would be suitable at all. They could not give me a plan, and so I went back to Don, and Don's the one that suggested maybe we come to the variance board and see what we could do. And that's really what we're doing here. That's primarily the hardship. The lot, the size that it is, just cannot have a home really constructed on it. And we still got a size to meet, and we've worked really hard to try to do that, and could not make that happen. I would like to. I provided a statement about my expert testimony, and this is something I don't particularly share with a heck of a lot of folks, but I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that, I'm a little more than a builder. I do have a civil engineering degree, and I've done a tremendous amount of work in Pinehurst. I was employed by the Pinehurst Resort, which was Diamond Head at the time, changed to Purcell Company, Pinehurst Enterprises, in 1981. I actually developed number 6 subdivision. The golf course was there. I developed number 7. I worked with Reese Jones and did the golf course clearing that he could shape it, and then I did the streets, the water and sewer, the pavement, all the drainage, Lakeview Villas, Dogwood Terrace, Juniper Creek Townhomes. I've just done a tremendous amount of work in Pinehurst. Work that I did, I was not a person they hired to manage construction companies to do the work. When they hired me, it was under the condition that I could purchase the equipment with Pinehurst money, of course, and I actually do the work myself. And they let me do that. And so we actually purchased backhoes and we did the work in the field ourselves. And so it's something that, I'm pretty proud of to be a part of. So I worked closely with the Village of Pinehurst to develop setback requirements for number 7 golf course lots immediately after the Village of Pinehurst was incorporated. I also managed the engineering firm as directed to design the number 7 lots. I've been a building contractor since 1984. I'm currently the owner of Pinehurst Homes, have an unlimited license. I worked for 3 architectural designers, principally the speculative homes, to construct a home on this property. Antiqua Designs, Dream Home Design, and Reeves Home Design. None of the firms could provide a home plan that's suitable for the property. I agree with them that in order to build on this lot, a 5-foot variance is required. This would allow a home to be built at 690 York Place. I've actually provided 2 different house plans that are very common, particularly in this area and other areas that are speculative homes. Pinehurst Homes, my company, I'm not really a spec builder. That's why that Don selected us. This house will either be beside the home that he'll live in or he's going to live in it, as he said. But I built 3 spec houses in 35 years. I'm a custom home builder. I mean, I can't say I build spec, but I've agreed to build this house for Don. But I have, I've actually got to with my architects, and these are 2 houses that are built quite often. And if you look at the one that's called the Brownstone, which is on the site plan, if everyone's got that. The dotted line is actually where the setback line is. The solid line would be with a 5-foot variance. You can see the deck would still be over the line, but the deck could be redesigned to be within that line, so this house could be constructed, on the piece of property with a 5-foot setback. There's no way it would work without the 5-foot setback. The other house plan that we provided was a driftwood, which is a very popular house, and it won't work even with the 5-foot variance. It just was very hard to find a home that would meet the setback requirements as they are. Again, the Village of Pinehurst with their PDO, what was recorded by Diamond Head, the front and rear setbacks were 20 feet. The side setback lines were 10 feet. When the village recorded their PDO, the setback at the rear changed to 25, which would be a loss of 5 foot. The front changed to 30, which was a loss of 10 feet. The sides changed to 15, in which they were 10. The side is not an issue in this case, but that's 15 foot of building area envelope that this particular lot lost when the PDO was written. One thing that affects this lot quite a bit is the cul-de-sac itself, because it encroaches back into the lot. When the engineers designed this piece of property for Diamond Head, I'm sure that these setbacks, which were, by the way, Moore County setbacks at the time, they designed it to meet, and the lots were smaller. 8 and 8A and the Gun Club, those areas were designed with smaller lots, and they had smaller sizes required on their house square footage. But that was back then. There is also a map that I've shown, or a plot that's like this right here. If you guys have got that. Shows York Place, and Don's house is at the very end. His house is 15 feet on the rear setback line. And the rear setback line is 25, so his existing house is 10 foot over the setback line. These houses were built before the PDO. 62% of the houses on this street are out of the setback. That's 5 out of 8 houses are outside of the setback that are on this particular street. 2 homes are 15 feet, which is 10 foot out. One of them's got an 8-foot side yard, which I really don't know how that happened because it was supposed to have only been 10. But this map was provided by Moore County from a GPS with the dimensions and different things. Again, this is, with the 5-foot setback, I can do something and we can build a nice home on the property that I think Don would be happy either living in or having as a house beside him. And, that's what we're here to try to achieve, is to get that 5-foot setback. And I personally don't feel like we're really asking for any more than the street's already way out of the setback. You will not find this in other areas like, this just goes back to some knowledge that I have as being part of Pinehurst for so daggone long. Number 6, for example, the lots were, although none of the lots out, some of them are that were the newer ones, but the lots are not very large, but they're larger than these lots. You don't have issues like this in the other areas around Pinehurst and the existing developments that Diamond Head did. 6 was one of the latest one they did, but 7 and the rest of them had larger lots to start with. But anyway, that's where we are. We're in Unit 8A, and the lot's just too small.
Are there any questions for the applicant from the board? Yes. Go ahead, Joel.
Wayne, how did these other folks get these variances?
I don't think they did. The houses that are there were built prior to the PDO. The PDA was written in '96.
And if you see in the staff report too, Joel, based on the tax data I was able to get, the homes that are built on York Place and the 2 that front the other road were built between the years 1983 and 1994.
Appears to me you've got terrible timing.
Yeah, that's right.
Any other questions?
The site is pretty well covered with longleaf pines, especially around the perimeter. But in the area where the house will be built, there are some, I don't want to say specimen trees, but there's some 20-inch diameter and larger longleaf pines that are going to have to be cut down. Would you think it necessary to add any buffers to the side and rear yard as a result of being closer to the neighbors at the rear, or?
There's, did you bring that picture?
Well, I took a picture of it.
Certainly may. Thank you.
Shortly after that,
Need to talk into the microphone.
shortly after the development was finished, they planted a lot of those big, huge pine trees. And you can't even see the house that's right behind this lot here that we're talking about.
So you don't think there's a need for any more buffering around the sides or the rear of the property?
He's right. You can't even, I mean, I walked the lot and you can't even see the house in the back.
And
Who drew the footprint of the proposed house on the map?
Sheffield, surveyor, Steve Sheffield did it for me. Actually sent him the plan and asked him to, he has the lot, he surveyed the lot for me. So he had everything in his CAD, his PDF, and he put the house on it for me.
Kelly, it's the last one. There you go.
I'm sorry, what was that, Leo?
We're just trying to get the correct picture on the screen.
Oh, you were looking at that, gotcha, okay. Thought you were looking at me.
Any other questions?
I just want to make sure that two things. Number one, in connection with the variance, we're talking about the brownstone,
Yes,
and that, as near as I can tell, if my math is close, that the bonus room can't be a bonus room and meet the square footage. It's going to have to be part of that.
yes, that's correct. Yes, that's right.
And I will,
1,900 some square feet when we finish the bonus room. You're exactly correct.
and I do want to say that I thank you for this one, because this one you clearly did your homework on.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the brownstone is not the footprint that's going to be shown, that's shown on this drawing that's on the screen. There is not a floor plan for the brownstone in the package of what the material I have.
They're
Oh,
not?
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
second.
You have the two.
Right, but that's not what's shown on the screen.
No, I don't, that's what's on the screen now. That's the brownstone. It's what's on my screen. How's that?
Is that the one you want to build, the brownstone?
Yes.
Yes.
The other one cannot be constructed on the
Excuse
lot.
me.
Yeah, the other one, even with the variance, you couldn't build it on the lot.
And I would like to just to clarify for the board that the request is for a 5-foot variance for the 25-foot rear setback,
And they can build
regardless
anything they
of
want
what.
on it.
Regardless of what's built.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and the reason I asked about that specific plan wasn't to lock in the house. It was to make sure that I was dealing with the 5-foot setback, the 5-foot encroachment.
Okay, is that it for discussion from the board, or questions from the board? Okay, then to move into discussion, to summarize the facts as I understand them, the request before us is to vary the 25-foot minimum rear yard setback from the property line in this R210 zoning district and allow for a 20-foot minimum rear yard setback. I just died. I did. Thank you. We have expert testimony from the applicant that without this variance, it would be impossible to build a home that meets the minimum 1,800 square footage R10 requirement on this lot. Is there any discussion between the board members at this time?
Well, the size of the house seems to be consistent with what's built on the rest of the cul-de-sac street. There are houses that have been constructed with rear yard setbacks less than 25 feet for good reason, because the properties were created in 1973. Is that right? That preceded any official ordinance in the village of Pinehurst. And for that reason, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
If there's any other questions or comments?
There's a big eyes over there from Alex. Are you ready?
So, Leo, you just said you're about to kick off a motion based on that, right?
Yes.
Okay, that was not your motion.
No, that was not the motion.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
go ahead, Leo.
That was facts. Just the facts, man. I would move to approve the variance to allow a 20-foot rear yard setback on property with the address of 5 York Place, further identified as Moore County PID 000170008, which is located in the R10 High Density Residential District, with the following required findings of fact and conclusions. A, unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. B, the hardship does not result, the hardship does result from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. C, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. And D, the required variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, with no other conditions imposed.
I'll second that.
Okay, a voice vote. There's a motion that's been made and seconded. Joel for voice vote? Chuck? Leo?
Approve?
Sonia? I approve as well. The motion's been made and carried. The variance is, approval for the variance is granted.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
At this time, turning to general business, is there any other business that the board has? Anyone wants to bring forward? If not, our next meeting date, if a new matter is brought before us, is Thursday, August 1st, 2019, 4:30 or 5?
We don't have any business unless
Okay.
you and the chair and the board would like to review the rules of procedure draft that was presented in your packet. We can take that up in the August meeting if you'd like.
Okay. Why don't we plan on doing that? Want to say 5 to allow time for P and Z?
We're going to have, it may not be all that much discussion at the next regular meeting of, the comp plan.
Because we have the work
Because
session
we have the work
scheduled.
sessions.
4:30 then?
Does that work for you? For P&Z? Okay.
Okay. So our next meeting will be Thursday, August 1st, 2019, at 4:30 PM. Currently before us is to review the rules of the board and administrative procedures. And we are adjourned. Oh, no, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Did we ever get a motion to close the public hearing?
Oh,
So move.
all in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is closed. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Sign this one right out, right?